California head honchos freak after Trump's DOJ delivers brutal reality check by Dan Lindsay, Politics US News for MadWorldNews.com. California head honchos, including Governor Jerry Brown, Senator Kamala Harris, and State Attorney General Xavier Becerra, are freaking out after President Donald Trump's Department of Justice delivered a brutal reality check. You don't want to miss this. The state of California is getting a brutal reality check from Trump's administration as the sanctuary state prepares to defend its unlawful immigration policies in court against the federal government. Yes, the Trump administration is suing California over sanctuary laws. I say arrest the three of them. How about that? According to Breitbart, 3 of the ultra-liberal retrobates who run the state had a bad reaction to the news on social media. Reportedly, our deep state darling Attorney General Jeff Sessions will visit California and make the official announcement on Wednesday, March 7th, 2018, at the 26th Annual Law Enforcement Legislative Day in Sacramento. According to court documents filed by the Department of Justice, the lawsuit seeks to overturn California's Immigrant Worker Protection HB 450, the Inspection and Review of Facilities Housing Federal Detainees Law AB 103, and the California Values Act SB 54, otherwise known as the Sanctuary State Law. The earth-shaking announcement comes on the heels of liberal Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf's warning to illegal immigrants in her city that Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE would be targeting them for arrest and deportation. After news of Schaaf's sickening behavior reached Washington, D.C., the White House and ICE Director Thomas Homan announced that the Department of Justice would be conducting a review of Schaaf's actions. I say lock her up too. Let's take a quick listen. Trump DOJ sues California tonight. Absolutely.
For reaction now to this late-breaking move tonight by the Trump administration, cracking down on California as a sanctuary state, that's the best way to put it. Let's bring in Harvey Dillon, an RNC committee woman here in California. She is also a civil rights attorney who regularly argues before the Ninth Circuit, and Nevada Republican Attorney General Adam Laxalt, who has been challenging California's sanctuary city policies and state policies from across the state line. Welcome to you both.
Happy to be here, Shannon.
All right, I want to start by reading a little bit from the lawsuit. Harmeet, I know you've had a chance to look at it. General, I don't know if you have as well, but it says this: the United States has undoubted preeminent authority to regulate immigration matters. This authority derives from the United States Constitution and numerous acts of Congress. California has no authority to enforce laws that obstruct or otherwise conflict with or discriminate against federal immigration enforcement efforts. Harvey, essentially this goes after 3 state laws that the feds say California is actively trying to stop them from doing immigration enforcement.
That's right, and as you mentioned, Shannon, the law points out that their supremacy clause of the United States Constitution requires that the federal government has the exclusive authority over immigration laws in our country. So California's got 3 laws that were passed last year, each of which is designed to obstruct, in one case, lawful employers. In the second case, the operation of the federal government with regard to detention of aliens. And in the third case, law enforcement is actively barred from cooperating with the federal government to give names of people who are about to be released, etc. So each of these is a direct threat in your face to the United States government. And as you can see from the angry reaction from Jerry Brown and Javier Becerra, they're not happy with being confronted with this. And so, but to me, as a legal issue, it's pretty simple. It's just like any other federal law. If a state doesn't like it, the state doesn't get to overrule the federal government. It's the other way around in our scheme. And the last time we had states trying to go off on their own and ignore federal law, we had a civil war in this country. So this is a dangerous time, and it is time. I'm glad to see the Attorney General stepping up.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold move tonight. General, I know that you have been fighting because you say what happens in California actually impacts your state as well. And when they have certain policies, it flows over across the border to you. You've been at this legal fight a while.
Absolutely. We've been in litigation for over a year. We originally supported the DOJ when they were trying to make sure they had the authority to withhold these grants. But let's talk about what's really going on here. These are very dangerous policies. This is common sense that our law enforcement locally needs to work with the federal authorities to get dangerous felons off the streets and to get them out of our communities. And so, of course, in Nevada, for your national audience may not know, we're a 3-hour drive in both major cities to Reno and Las Vegas. If they're not working with federal authorities to get violent felons off the street and deported, they are easily able to drive over the border and end up here in Nevada. And here, all 17 sheriffs and myself as the top law enforcement officer, we've been fighting against this. We were able to push back this last session when the Democrat legislative session tried to push this forward. And fortunately, we spoke in one voice and were able to convince our lawmakers that this simply makes no sense and endangers our citizens.
Okay, now the judge, the federal judge at the district level, the very first level, who's been handling many of these cases, Judge Orrick, last fall he ruled against the administration when President Trump issued an executive order essentially going after sanctuary cities. He said this, he said the Constitution vests the spending powers in Congress, not the president. So the executive order cannot constitutionally place new conditions on federal funds. Went on to say federal funding that bears no meaningful relationship to immigration enforcement cannot be threatened merely because a jurisdiction and immigration enforcement strategy of which the president disapproves. Now, Harmeet, there are many different cases now kind of joined together and related being handled by this judge. He's had a couple of different rulings, but essentially, so far what he said on the merits is the feds can't do a lot of what they're doing or trying to do with respect to defanging sanctuary cities and defunding them.
Right, well, so this was an executive order passed by the president in the salad days of the administration in the first few days. Mm-hmm. The Attorney General of the United States then came out with a statement that sort of tried to cut back or define what the executive order covered. And that's what the judge ruled on today. The same judge ruled on, this Judge Orrick ruled today, that actually when you look at only cutting back or holding back grants that have to do with law enforcement, which is a much lower amount than all federal funding, that is not necessarily a bad thing at this stage in the litigation. So he's asking the government to come forward and prove that there's a legitimate tie between law enforcement and the enforcement of immigration laws. That seems obvious to you and me and the Attorney General from Nevada, obviously, but for our law enforcement in California, the rhetoric that you hear them using, like the Attorney General here did today, is, oh, we're tearing families apart. Well, if you're a family with a criminal who's done drug trafficking, pimping of children, armed violence, DUI, etc., those people go to jail too in America. And so shielding them is actually putting illegal immigrants at a much higher level of protection than the rest of the society. It makes no sense.
Well, this case will have to wind its way through many hurdles, including the Ninth Circuit, maybe eventually at the Supreme Court. Harmeet, General Laxon, I know that you will both be watching as this journey continues.
Yeah. Well, the DOJ's announcement of a new lawsuit against California immediately provoked Governor Jerry Brown, Senator Kamala Harris, and State Attorney General Xavier Becerra to air out their anxiety and frustration on Twitter. At a time of unprecedented political turmoil, Jeff Sessions has come to California to further divide and polarize America. Jeff, these political stunts may be the norm in Washington, but they don't work here. Sad, Brown wrote. Brown is a complete idiot if he doesn't realize that our country's state or of unprecedented political turmoil was caused by his political party and former President Barack Obama. The Trump administration doesn't need to perform political stunts when it has the law on its side. I can't wait to see Brown's reaction when his liberal dream world collides with a sound ruling from a federal judge. In addition to Brown's Twitter rant, California Senator Kamala Harris jumped on the bandwagon and said, Trump and Sessions think they can bully California, but it won't work. No one is bullying California, and someone needs to remind Harris that the sanctuary state is violating the constitutional rights of millions of people who live within its borders by giving refuge and resources to illegals who don't belong in our country. Another liberal voice sounding off on Twitter was California Attorney General Xavier Becerra, who said, "Like all the men and women who wear the badge in California, I took an oath to uphold the law. That means all of the laws." Xavier Becerra is severely delusional if he thinks he's on the level of rank and file members of California's law enforcement community. In fact, the liberal policies he supports are a tremendous reason why California has such a bad crime problem. Becerra can quit pretending to be the tough guy because no one is buying it. The fact that a liberal hack like Becerra can become the Attorney General in any state is a sad representation of how far we've fallen as a society. Yeah, because all the illegals voted for him. It's far past time for the Trump administration to rein in the liberal sanctuary states and cities in our country. They shouldn't be allowed to violate laws and have been in existence for decades or longer in order to fit their liberal agendas. California is already suffering from the large number of illegal immigrants who drain public resources without contributing to the tax base. No wonder they call it Communist California. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.